So welcome everybody. Thank you again for your patience. My name is Jessica Chang and I serve as the Diversity Officer for Student Engagement at the Center for Inclusive Excellence. And I want to thank you for coming to El Puente de la Canción as part of One SDSU community programming. As I mentioned, we'll be recording this event and we'll begin today's event with the Kumeyaay Land Acknowledgement. And I encourage all of you, if you're not in San Diego, to explore the land that you are on today, as well as our commitment to inclusion. For millennia, the Kumeyaay people have been a part of this land. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the San Diego State community, we acknowledge this legacy. We promote this balance and harmony. We find inspiration from this land, the land of the Kumeyaay. Thank you for centering that with me. So welcome. The goal of One SDSU community is to provide opportunities for you to learn about yourselves, the perspectives, experiences, and identities that make you unique, allowing you to connect with other students to learn about their journeys as well. By having these opportunities, the hope is that ultimately every member of the SDSU community comes to embrace diversity in all its forms, bringing our community together as one diverse group. The One SDSU's programming framework has 3 themes, and this afternoon's program theme is activating community dialogue. So together we'll be engaging in activities that provide learning through identities, through both of our through self-exploration and exploring others' perspectives. Over the course of today's panel discussion, please feel free to make comments in the chat box. And if you'd like to pose a question to one of our speakers, please post it in the Q&A. At the end of the program, we'll invite you to share about your experiences with a brief survey, so please stay and take that survey as well. And we hope that you'll be able to give us your reflections, positive, negative, for our improvements, as well as we want to make sure that we have programs that represent what you're looking for at SDSU. And now I'd like to turn it over to Eric Schmiegel, Chair of Arts Alive, SDSU.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to welcome you to the final production in this year's Arts Alive SDSU Discovery Series, which is an annual selection of events that address socio-political and cultural issues through the visual and performing arts. We've been delighted to partner with One SDSU, who has been sponsoring these panel discussions, and I'd like to thank Jessica and the entire team at Student Life and Leadership for their ongoing support of arts programming across campus. Today's discussion focuses on El Puente de la Canción, Bridge of the Song, a virtual concert by the SDSU Chamber Choir and musical artists from Mexico City. This binational collaboration explores and celebrates the permeability of the international border, offering a rich opportunity to learn more about the dynamic relationship among different performance traditions. Our transborder region is a vibrant site for cultural exchange, which has long found expression in music, especially vocal music. Our voices are inseparable from our bodies, our languages, and our identities. And when they join together, they create a wonderfully complex dialogue. We've all experienced plenty of complexity over the last year, and the pandemic certainly affected practices of vocal singing, choral singing, and vocalizing, which rely fundamentally on physical proximity. The SDSU Chamber Choir, directed by Professor Arian Khaefi from the School of Music and Dance, is the premier vocal ensemble at SDSU. And over the last several months, as you'll soon see and hear, these extraordinary students have been rehearsing in some rather unusual settings. Given these unprecedented challenges, this project is a true testament to the resilience and passion of our students, who continue to bring their beautiful voices together in song. It's now my pleasure to introduce our featured panelists. Professor Arian Khaefi from the School of Music and Dance and director of the SDSU Chamber Choir, music students Natéa Cooke and Diego León, who sing with the Chamber Choir, Professor David Arontes, choral director at Conservatorio Nacional de Música in Mexico City, and our special guest artist, singer and composer, Juan Pablo Villa.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smigel. Hello, everyone out there in Zoom land. My name is Arian Khaefi, and it's my pleasure and honor to be here with you today as we have a chance to chat with our panelists and our guest artists who have been with us and behind this project for the past 2 months. I wanted to start out by giving you a brief overview of this project, how it started out, and how it came to be and how it came to develop. Last year, very much in the before times, it was my first year at San Diego State University and my first semester at San Diego State University, and I met the student, that student right there, Diego León. And Diego had been working with the previous choral director and director of the school on this potential trip to Mexico City for the chamber choir as part of a student success fee. And so I land on the scene and I hear about this project, and Diego and I approach one another almost at the same time about relaunching this effort. And so we planned a tour through Mexico City. And the tour is going to be 10 days, a 10-day choral tour, performing in various sites and venues, cultural exploration, a international choral tour. And we were working with Professor Arontes, who very, very kindly and graciously spent a lot of time and dedicated a lot of energy to putting together this incredible tour. And we started dreaming together and thinking, well, it would be, it'd be really wonderful and fun and fascinating to dream up a choral festival in Mexico City. And so we did. We had the beginnings of a choral festival that we were going to launch and invite choirs from throughout Mexico and throughout Southern California. And then COVID hit, and so we didn't want to abandon the project. And we thought, well, what can we save from the project, and how can we develop it under these new restrictions and these new guidelines? And so we started dreaming and thinking, how can we do this over Zoom? How can we do this virtually? I don't even think at the time we knew that we had the potential to rehearse in person at all. And so we started reaching out to folks, and we reached out to Juan Pablo Villa. And from there, we developed this wonderful partnership with Juan Pablo and the National Conservatorio to showcase a very small snippet of music making, choral music making in Mexico. With Juan Pablo, we started to explore the Cardenche songs. The academic component of this, and my deepest thanks to Arts Alive and to the Discovery series, who bridged us with Chicano studies. And we spent a big portion of this semester in video lectures with Chicano studies, learning about Mexican culture, Mexican history, Mexican musicians, Mexican music over the last 700 years. And the entire project became this really beautiful fleshing out of musics and cultures that we were wholly unfamiliar with from our vantage point in Southern California. And as Dr. Smigel said, the project became a chance to explore the permeability of this border and how really porous it can be, and how much space for collaboration and shared space for music making and cultural exchange there can be. And so that's what we set out to do. That's what we aimed to do with this project. I'm going to start by showing you a clip of one of our participants and their ensemble of Maestro Arontes working with the National Conservatorio and that choir. So if you will bear a moment. So beautiful. So at this point, I would like to hand it over to Professor Arontes, and to begin the discussion with our panelists. Professor Arontes, will you tell us, please, a little bit about your work at the National Conservatory, the ensemble that you work with, and this beautiful video project that you put together for El Puente? And before we go into that, I just want to say that Diego León has been translating for us throughout this project. He is not a professional translator, he's our student ambassador, but he's been so instrumental and wonderful in bridging these connections. So thank you for that, Diego.
Claro que sí. Profesor Arontes, el doctor Khaefi quiere ahora que empiece usted a contarnos acerca de su experiencia en el Conservatorio Nacional de Música como docente y director de coros, que nos cuente su experiencia trabajando en este proyecto en específico, acerca de cómo es crear un proyecto que cruza fronteras de esta manera.
Hola, gracias a todos por la invitación. En particular, soy director de coros y me he dedicado a dirigir tanto coros estudiantiles de escuelas de música como coros profesionales y así como coros de aficionados. Hoy estamos hablando justamente del coro del Conservatorio Nacional de Música y es una experiencia complicada, tengo que decirlo. El conservatorio, como su nombre lo dice, para bien o para mal, es una escuela tradicionalista en muchos aspectos. Es una escuela hecha a la usanza europea y, hablando de cantantes, hecha pensando para cantantes solistas. Entonces, de alguna manera, muchos cantantes no siempre les gusta cantar en coro porque se sienten un poco disminuidos, no es su gusto personal. Sin embargo, hay muchos cantantes que les gusta cantar en coro y por otro lado, tengo la oportunidad de trabajar con muchos músicos, instrumentistas, guitarristas, flautistas, violinistas, pianistas, que paradójicamente les gusta mucho cantar en coro. Y es ahí donde viene la riqueza del trabajo que hacemos nosotros. Un grupo muy heterogéneo, de muchas edades, puedo tener jóvenes de 15 años hasta normalmente 25, 26, 27 años, y todavía tenemos la oportunidad de abrir nuestras puertas a gente, a personas, a coralistas que vienen desde afuera, externos al conservatorio, pero que tienen la preparación suficiente para sumarse a nuestras filas. Eso es nuestro trabajo en el conservatorio. Hacemos de todo, música renacentista, hacemos mucha ópera, tenemos la fortuna de participar en montajes de ópera. En los últimos años hemos hecho Turandot, Aida, Nabucco, Carmen, pero hoy estamos cambiando entre tantas circunstancias difíciles que tenemos en estos momentos, justamente con este proyecto que es de lo más interesante, de lo más enriquecedor, entablar un diálogo verbal y un diálogo musical con nuestros vecinos y compañeros y hermanos del norte. Ver qué podemos decir, qué hay, qué tenemos en común, qué no tenemos en común, qué puede ser diferente. Y yo quiero decirles que me parece que de las cosas que nos diferencian a los estudiantes en la capital mexicana, creo que de lo más complicado es las enormes distancias que tenemos que movernos para estar en nuestras clases, en nuestros horarios normales. Es increíble porque, y hasta me apena un poco decirlo, puede haber alumnos que inviertan hasta 6 horas diarias de transporte para llegar a la escuela. Eso es terrible. Y estoy seguro que a la hora de compararlo con cualquier escuela de música en cualquier parte del mundo, las distancias son mucho menos por el tamaño. Pero a fin de cuentas, con todo y esto, y ahora con la distancia virtual que nos acerca tanto con ellos como nosotros, hemos podido participar en este proyecto donde nos interesa y nos gusta mucho llevar un poco de nuestra música mexicana. Acabamos de oír a uno de los máximos representantes de la música coral mexicana del siglo pasado, de finales del siglo pasado, el maestro Ramón Noble. Él nació en 1920, murió en 1999. Se dedicó a la promoción de coros fundamentalmente, aunque también tiene muchas composiciones como la que escuchamos hace un momento. Y espero que sea algo que disfruten y me gustará oír ahora escuchar lo que tienen propuestos ustedes. Ajá. ¿Qué viene de allá? ¿Cuáles son sus circunstancias y sus oportunidades, no? La verdad es que nuestras oportunidades, somos pocas escuelas de música aquí en esta enorme, enorme ciudad. Solamente hay 4 escuelas profesionales de música. Ajá. Eso es un problema muy grande porque hay mucha gente que quiere estudiar música, pero muy poco espacio. ¿Cómo serán en otros lados? ¿Cómo será en San Diego? Seguramente ustedes me lo podrán platicar. Eso es por lo pronto mi primera participación.
Gracias, maestro. Would you like me to translate right now? Okay. So I'm going to try to translate as much as I can. Obviously, I cannot translate word for word, but I will try to convey what the professor has talked about. So he explained about his personal experience as a choral director. He has worked with both professional, academic, and amateur choirs at every level, with people from a very diverse group of backgrounds. He talks about the challenges that the conservatory face for the choral program, specifically in that the conservatory in Mexico is designed in a very traditional way, in which singers are expected to be soloists, to become opera singers, and not so much to work on choral music, on ensemble pieces. It's a tradition that didn't develop in the same way in Mexico as it has here. So one of the challenges is try to change that mindset and help people understand choral music for the value that it has. Some of the other challenges that he talks about is how distances for commutes in Mexico can be very difficult for certain students. So sometimes having people attend a choir rehearsal can be a lot more challenging. And now with COVID and the development of these new technologies, it kind of has opened up the possibility for creating new projects like this one that we're making right now. He talks about the piece that you just showed us, Dr. Khaefi. Is music by Ramón Noble, one of the more important Mexican composers for choir music, and he. And please here, Natéa, if you got anything that I am forgetting, help me with this. But then he also explains how his main interest in participating in this project is to kind of generate this dialogue, this artistic dialogue between the two countries, between two very different experiences as musicians and as students, and try to understand what we are similar on, the differences that exist between our cultures and between our practices, and the things that we can learn from each other to really kind of build up on those and strengthen those relationships. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Diego. Natéa, did you want to add anything to that?
Diego got everything. Good
Great.
job.
Thank you for that. So, Maestro Arontes, I'm also curious, having worked on this project now for the past few months, you say that the exposure to choral music is not so much in Mexico. Has this project created an opportunity to talk about choral music? Has it generated curiosity in your students about choral music? Have they hated working on it? Have they enjoyed working on it? What was your students' experience working on this project?
Maestro, pregunta el doctor Khaefi que cuál ha sido la experiencia de sus estudiantes trabajando en este proyecto, qué les ha parecido, cuál ha sido la reacción de trabajar en algo de esta manera.
La primera es que les emociona el hacer una cosa en conjunto, sobre todo con grupos tan diferentes, realmente tan diferentes, o culturalmente hablando o musicalmente hablando. Estaban muy emocionados, pero por el otro lado, yo lo que acabo de percibir y lo recibí por algunos comentarios de varios de ellos, es que quisieran tener a la larga un intercambio más allá de lo musical. Sí, un intercambio musical, pero tal vez conversaciones, tal vez direcciones, tal vez información de qué cosas se pueden enriquecer los unos con los otros, tanto de cuestiones académicas como de intercambios estudiantiles, qué sé yo. Hay mucho interés en conocer en hacer intercambio a largo plazo, a corto y a largo plazo.
He says that the overall reaction of the students is a lot of excitement to work with ensembles that are so different from that work in such a different way than the way that they're used to working, and that more than anything, there is kind of this hope that this relationship that we're opening up can be sustained and can transcend just the musical aspect of the exchange and become something that can go farther and develop into something deeper in a deeper relationship in between both institutions, both cultures.
I really hope that can happen. I've had so many experiences in the past where working with an organization that wants you to, for whatever reason, come in and work with a choir, work with a group, once and call it a day, and have that kind of serve as service, to that organization, where that really is kind of a shallower experience to me. These kinds of one-off passing in the night. So I absolutely agree that I hope that this project does serve as a launching point for a deeper relationship on both sides. So go ahead and translate that, and then I'm going to go to Maestro Villa.
Maestro Arontes, dice el profesor Khaefi que concuerda con usted y que dice que hay muchas ocasiones en las que colaboraciones como estas quedan en un solo concierto, en una sola colaboración, y luego por cuestiones institucionales se tienen que dejar, pero que la esperanza aquí es sí formar algo más profundo, una conexión duradera que alimente la relación de estas instituciones y de los artistas tanto en México como en Estados Unidos. Thank you, Dr. K.
Thank you, Diego. So, folks, I want to move for a moment to introducing in a deeper way our next panelist, Juan Pablo Villa, and I'm going to start by showing you a clip from his concert, but also his contribution to this video project with Coro Acardenchado. So, if you will allow me a moment. Juan Pablo, hello, and will you please tell us about yourself and about Coro Acardenchado and Cardenche, please.
Hello, everyone. I am Juan Pablo Villa from Mexico City. I'm a 45 years man. I'm a vocal artist. I consider myself a vocal artist. I've been developing my voice as an instrument and all the possibilities, talking about extended vocal techniques, etc. In somehow specialized in Cardenche songs, in a certain way, not only singing the Cardenche songs, but with a deep commitment with the community of Los Cardencheros de Sapioris. Sapioris is a very small town in Durango, Mexico, in the north part of Mexico. I'm also a composer and a producer, and I am the director of this beautiful choir, which is the Coro Acardenchado choir, and it is a very big choir with professional and non-professional musicians. Everyone's devoted to the Cardenche songs, to the love of making a community through our voices, and that's the bet of this choir. Of course, we work with, as you could see, with some body percussion and some other improvisations and extended vocal techniques in some other songs. But in a, in a, how you say it, in a big view of myself, that's what I do. I'm also a singing teacher, but well, in this last period, I've been producing a lot of dance, theater, cinema projects through voices and also through some other instruments and ensembles. And I was invited to also work with the chamber choir of the San Diego State University, and I'm so happy to be here with you. And yeah, in a certain way, this is who I am. Yeah.
Thanks, Juan Pablo. You talk about these extended vocal techniques. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah. So in my own development as a singer, I try to listen, reach all the different ways of using this beautiful instrument. My first approach was the overtone singing. A friend in Mexico taught me a little bit of about this overtone singing, but then I decided to try to do it. I can do it, but I'm not good as my friend yet. He's awesome and he's super great, and also I met some people from Canada, these Inuit girls that taught me a little bit about these throat singing techniques. The katahak, or I don't know how to say it in English, katajak maybe, because you have a J over there. But it's this exhale, inhale, way of producing sounds. But then I began to get more into another. I reached, well, my first approach is Demetrios Stratos. He was a beautiful singer from Greece, Italy, and he died in 1976, 75 around. But he sang a lot of things for John Cage, though he made a lot of compositions and improvisations by himself, using the voice as in any ways. So what I understand of extended vocal techniques are these techniques that are not, how to say it in English, like this formal way of singing. Yeah, I think maybe that's the correct way of saying it. I mean, the way that in the academy you can learn to sing opera or other styles, but into the academic. So they call this like a different approach of using the bow of the violin or whatever. So extended vocal techniques might be related, as a friend told me, as a very ancient forms of using the voice, using different sounds granular or sand sounds or click sounds or multiphonic sounds made by pushing the larynx. And so actually we can call extended vocal technique to any other technique not taught in the school. And in, yeah, so in this way, I think those are extended vocal techniques. As I said, I took some of the also of the traditional ways of the voice, as yodel, overtone singing, throat singing, as in Inuit, not only in Tuvan, uh, but also in this part of trying uh, to know a little bit more about these techniques. Uh, I found myself looking into my own uh, cultural roots, and I found the Cardenche songs many years ago. So this is not an extended vocal technique, of course, but it's a traditional way of using the voice, and it's another way of connecting the voice with. So yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned these inhalations, inward singing, outward singing, overtone singing, as anything that is not taught in a formal Western conservatory. We had to be very careful, as all of you attendees will see later on in the session. We're going to show a clip of the SDSU chamber choir singing a portion of the Puente concert that we recorded, and the interludes, some of the interludes that we sing between the Cardenche songs are utilizing some of these extended vocal techniques. And it was a big challenge to rehearse in this way. Number one, we're in a parking structure. So listening is a challenge. And number two, we're in masks. And so inhalation, breathing, just making sounds is a real challenge too. But the part that we had to be very careful with is that we're not used to using our voices in this way. And so even, Juan Pablo, even during a couple of rehearsals, you'd be very careful to say, slow down, take breaks. You can't do this for very long. If you feel yourself tensing up here, relax, take a moment and come back to it. So we had to pace ourselves out in actually rehearsing, especially some of the inward breathing and the inward speaking and singing was particularly challenging. I'm curious to ask Natéa and Diego, as student ambassadors and representatives here, and as two students who also rehearsed with chamber choir, what were your experiences with these extended techniques?
Well, I guess I'll go first. I think the hardest part was it wasn't the technique itself. It was probably the mental space that I had to get into in order to perform these very non-traditional musical styles. But what I found was that it was very freeing, and it kind of made us as a choir a lot more cohesive and in tune with one another. And that was probably my favorite part, despite a lot of the difficulty that we faced in order to get to that point.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that is, for me, it's just incredible to kind of approach voice in such a different way. My entire education had been only studying classical technique from the beginning, and to have this moment where you have to confront that is not the only way of producing sound, of using our instrument, and that voice can really, we can use it in a much wider spectrum of colors, of resources that we can use to create art with it. It's a very liberating experience. And it's also kind of, it makes you realize the limitations of our own art and of our own education, of what we have available and what is considered to be important or not for us to learn. To have, to find these techniques, like Juan Pablo was saying, like it for him, finding these techniques sent him on this search, like introspective search for his own cultural heritage. I feel like that's something that I also kind of experience by learning a little bit more about these kind of things and this kind of vocal techniques. I've become much more interested in how many techniques do I just have never heard of. what more is there out there that we just as opera singers completely ignore, or are just not required to learn in any way. There's a lot more to our instrument than what we think, and I think that's a very challenging and a very, very fascinating perspective to learn, and this project really has opened up that door for a lot of us, I think.
Well, this becomes a really interesting question for Professor Arontes, because here in the States, in the United States, we are more and more, whether it's in the public institutions or whether it's in conservatory, we are really trying to instill in our students this idea that versatility is crucial, that the days of specialization, of being very expert in one area. I am a classical singer of 19th century repertoire that was composed in a town in Austria. Like that, those days are slowly coming to an end, where we need to be so versatile as musicians, and we need to be so so flexible to sing in different styles, and to sing with, you know, some of the compositions that that I'm seeing, a lot more of the compositions that I'm seeing actually are utilizing these kinds of extended techniques, whether it's overtone singing or whether it's inward singing, or whether it's non-Western colors and sounds that we make with the voice, vowel shapes, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm wondering, are these kinds of topics, is this kind of versatility and diversity and flexibility, is that also explored in the National Conservatory, Professor Arontes?
Maestro Arontes, le pregunta el director Khaefi que aquí en Estados Unidos está empezando a haber una conversación que concierne a la versatilidad del canto y el uso de técnicas extendidas y de repertorio extendido, ¿no? Y la necesidad por diversificar nuestras áreas de especialización como músicos, como una reacción a esta versión más tradicional de la educación que esperaba que los músicos se especializaran en un tipo de repertorio, un tipo de música, un periodo incluso histórico muy específico, y que ahorita, como por necesidades de la industria y por simplemente cambios sociales, empieza a haber esta tensión, este cambio ideológico que requiere que los músicos sean más versátiles en su manera de aprender y en su manera de producir arte. Y pregunta si eso es algo que también está sucediendo en México, cuál es la visión de la Academia Mexicana Musical al respecto de como diversificación del repertorio y de la pedagogía musical.
La diversificación de la que ustedes platican se da, pero más bien no a nivel instituciones, se da a nivel aulas o a nivel maestros. Algunos maestros que tienen alguna inclinación hacia un lado o hacia otro. En el conservatorio, por ejemplo, había un maestro que lamentablemente falleció hace como 2 años, que le estaba dedicando mucha atención al trabajo folclórico. Y otro maestro que se acaba de jubilar, acaba de terminar, pero que le estaba dedicando mucho al jazz. En otras escuelas, por ejemplo, la escuela de la Universidad Nacional, por diversas circunstancias se han juntado ahí varios maestros que les interesa la música antigua. Y entonces ahí que ha tenido un gran auge ese quehacer. Y respecto a la música contemporánea y las técnicas extendidas y todo esto, es mucho más complicado. Más bien son algunos pocos maestros que logran atrapar a algunos pocos alumnos para hacer algo así, o cuando de afuera algún compositor, alguna institución está interesada en hacer un proyecto contemporáneo, contacta ya sea a través de la institución o directa o por afuera, y se realizan esos contactos para hacer esa nueva manera de hacer música. Pero son como casos muy aislados en general y actitudes meramente personales, individualistas.
Gracias, maestro. So what Professor Arontes' response is that yes, there is a push for more diversification of the repertoire, but it's not at an institutional level, at least not yet. There are certain schools like the National, not the National Conservatorio, the National School of Music, which is the National University School of Music, which has incorporated some jazz elements to its program. And there are individual teachers that have the will to push for a curriculum that centers more of folkloric traditions, and that really recognizes them in the same level of validity and value than the classical tradition. But this all remains very individual and isolated. It's not a systemic thing that has been incorporated into the larger academic curriculum. It's mostly when people from outside the institutions have the will to create projects such as this one, or the one that Juan Pablo has with the Coro Acardenchado, that push starts to happen, and the students start to feel it, but there's still not a big conversation being had towards academia about the diversification of styles and the incorporation of that into the curriculum.
I see. Thank you for that. And what kinds of things are there efforts towards that? Are there programs that are starting to open up more about that? Are there curricular changes that are taking place? What kinds of things are happening to address that on a larger scale?
Maestro pregunta que específicamente si hay qué cambios han sucedido específicos como para empujar esta cuestión de la diversificación en el estudio y en el repertorio, como si hay clases que se hayan incorporado, carreras que se hayan incorporado al Conservatorio Nacional de Música u otras instituciones, qué específicamente se está haciendo como para atender esta situación.
Como dije hace un momento, en realidad son iniciativas personales. Ahorita yo pensaba también que algo que me faltó, creo que el único que a nivel grupal hace comedia musical en el Conservatorio Musical soy yo. Ajá. Es un detalle, ¿no? Nadie más lo hace. Y, por ejemplo, teníamos, lamentablemente, la pandemia nos tiró el proyecto, ya tenemos pactado un concierto de Pink Floyd. Ajá, que es algo impensable en la gran mayoría de la gente. También yo tuve la osadía de hace varios años hacer una rapsodia bohemia en la sala de Zabalcoyot. Son cosas peculiares que cuestan mucho trabajo, y estas iniciativas individuales hay maestros que lo tienen y que buscan y que mueven a sus alumnos para hacer o música contemporánea o música popular, jazz, por ejemplo, pero son maestros que van abriendo camino, que van abriendo brecha, y que lamentablemente, si no logran sembrar la semilla, cuando ellos se jubilan, cuando ellos fallecen, la brecha se vuelve a cerrar.
So what Professor Arontes has to say about this is that that sadly is still a very individual thing. It has not been incorporated into the institutions almost whatsoever. What he says is, like, in his own personal experience, for example, he's very interested in musical theater. That's one of the repertoires that he likes, which is not as common in Mexico as it is here. And he has tried to incorporate that into his teaching. And they have tried to do a Pink Floyd-based concert with music from the British band Pink Floyd, and a concert from the British band Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody. But he says, like, that's kind of his personal preference in music and what he wants to do, so he pushes for that. And it's the same with other teachers that have a personal preference or inclination towards certain kind of repertoire, and they push for that. But without institutional support, once those teachers retire or pass away, because usually teachers in Mexico, they last a long time in their positions, those impulses to try to change the academic curriculum, they go away with them. So there is still kind of a big problem in that sense. There's not a lot of opportunity for this kind of diversification to happen at the institutional level.
That's really interesting. Juan Pablo, I know that you work with a very different cross-section of singers from within Coro Acardenchado, and do those singers have other jobs elsewhere? Are they singing professionally elsewhere? And what do they think about this kind of diversification of repertoire and commingling of styles and things like that?
They love it. Yeah, it's I have two directors that work with me. One of them is one of my favorite musicians. She's Leica Mochan, and she's responsible of this body percussion. We've been very close to Barbatuques also with this Brazilian band. I know very good Marcelo Preto, which is one of the guys. I've been meeting Marcelo in different places in the world, and so a lot of people that sing the choir, they are like kind of fans of Leica's work or my own work or the Cardencheros de Sapioris, which are the people that los depositarios de esta tradición, Diego, the depositaries of this tradition. I don't know if that's the word in English.
Of this tradition, I think. Yeah, the owners of this tradition.
Exactly. Some of the people of the choir just love the Cardenche song. So they come from different places. But now we are a very strong community. Two things gathered us during this period. One was Harbor Front Center, Celebrate Mexico Now in New York, and Museo del Chopo in Mexico, which commissioned a concert, and the other one was these concerts of Teatro de la Ciudad, joining this beautiful event of the SDSU, and now we've been closer now, and we are like a kind of a tribe, a family, because some of them it's the first time that they have been in a stage, on a stage. So during these 5 years of the Coro Acardenchado, so for them it's like their artistic life, and now they're studying and they are just growing a lot because the choir is um, giving them this extra energy or power to develop themselves, and not only them, but a lot of people is interested in joining this, professional or non-professional or traditional singers or folk singers. So we have like plenty of people. I've been doing a workshop, and now we have around 250 people in Mexico, plus around 60 people around the world, especially in Austria and Japan, which also are singing sometimes these Cardenche songs. So we've been building a very, very big community. Um, I know when you make a question, I just go and answer some other things. I'm sorry, but I just want to make a parenthesis. Eric maybe trying to ask, because none of the maybe some of the people that are watching us, they don't know what extended vocal techniques are, and he asked me to make just a little bit of approach so they can know. But yeah, just I close the parenthesis. Maybe I can do it later.
You could also do it now if you'd like.
Just very briefly. I'm sorry, but I think it could be nice. So,
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's what that's is how
Okay, that is at once supremely cool and also incredibly frustrating. And let me tell you why. Because as I'm sure before COVID, you were able to work so closely with your choir and with choirs that you would work with around the world. And teaching techniques like that, from experience, I know how involved and hands-on it is, and how important it is to really be able to listen and react and respond and touch, and all the tactile things that go into creating these extended techniques. You taught us over Zoom. You were working with our ensemble as we were in a parking structure, standing 10 feet away or 15 feet away from one another in a diminished setting, projected on a white sheet for 45 minutes twice a week. So what was that experience like for you? I can talk about my own side of it, but I'm curious for you as an oral practitioner, as someone who teaches orally, what was that like for you to work with us in that way?
Well, one of my favorite things in life is to travel around the world with my voice and what I do. So missing that opportunity with you, it was sad, but the experience was nice. I mean, we've been working with this digital life now for a year. So it was like 9-10 months that we've been using these, and we just worked for 2 or 3 months. So I sent some videos to see if I was clearer with that. And of course, let me tell you something. I felt very good, actually. I felt very welcome because Diego did a very nice work welcoming with you, Arian. And then, because we were talking a lot by WhatsApp, these video conferences or whatever, so I felt very close, very near to the students, to the choir, to the to the process. So I think you didn't miss anything. You and your team, you were so professional. So I really felt like sorry not being there, but also I felt like I was there because I could listen to everything. I could I could see a lot of the choir singing at real time. They sent me some of the uh, uh, way they sing. So it was yeah, it was a very nice uh, project or experience, and you really made me feel very close to the ensemble, and the way you direct it was also very beautiful for me because I'm a self-taught musician, and I just say, okay, I'm gonna conduct my choir, and I just think about how am I going to do and try to be very precise. And the more, I think the most important thing is I try to make them sound what I want to make. So watching you and watching the choir was a very rich experience. So yeah, I miss the experience. I know we will have the opportunity to meet, but you really made me feel welcome to this process, and I felt very, very nice, very close to it.
Thank you. To just let folks know a little bit about how this process worked. Typically an ensemble works with an ensemble director, and the line of communication and the line of assessment and feedback is direct. We hear something and we're able to kind of challenge the ensemble about what they think and try to affect change right then and there. So Juan Pablo is working with us from Mexico City via Zoom. He can't hear anything in real time, so everything has latency to it. And so he gives us some direction, and we have to shut everything down and mute everything so that he can't hear himself and hear that feedback. Then the choir would sing an excerpt, I would listen to it, interpret from what I have learned from Juan Pablo throughout this process, and then I would feed that back to Juan Pablo, and then he would, so there were so many layers of interpretation in this process that when we eventually became fluid at it, it was wonderful. It took some doing to get there, but this is actually a great transition to listening to some of those extended techniques. I'm going to play a clip for you from the SDSU Chamber Choir now, singing their portion of El Puente. This is at the Centro Cultural de la Raza in Balboa Park, a very beautiful setting. It also happens to be the first time in over a year, that the choir sang in an indoor space together. So. So this was one of the hardest things that we worked on. And as I said, this was one of the interludes that used some of these extended techniques, the inward inhalation singing, and all of it was improvised. And it was amazing how quickly the choir could react to the slightest, even the moderate sort of directions that I was giving them. So we had a direction of volume and of going into the next level of volume. And we then also had a direction of intensity and quickness of chatter. And so I actually, at the suggestion of one of our students, Trevor, I think you're in the attendees, we used our shirt buttons to indicate how intense the chatter should be. And this is kind of an incorporation of Balinese monkey chat, the headna chat that we used in our performance. So it was tremendously challenging to get into the headspace of being sort of free, uninhibited, and not self-conscious to do this in the first place. And it took the singers a lot of work to get into a space where they could do that. And the result was that. Conductor buttons coming soon. Yes. Perfect.
Can I jump in there just to add a little bit? It was, I think, one of the most wonderful things about that experience was kind of as an ensemble all together. You included Dr. Khaefi. It was trying to learn these songs while at the same time developing the ability to perform them from zero. It wasn't just the teacher teaching us how to do this, but the entire ensemble learning how to approach a repertoire that was completely out of our comfort zone, completely out of what we are used to doing. And I think it was really cool to see how that developed from both sides, from the conductor side and from the choir side. All those indications, we got to see when those indications came to be, and how your mental process developed those indications for us to understand it. That language, we developed that language as an ensemble all together. And I think that is a very different experience than when you have a conductor just tell you where your downbeat is. Like it's a much more hands-on approach to making music and communal approach to making music.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word that I just wanted to add in there. It was completely communal and non-traditional. It was not, we tried to remove the hierarchy from it of conductor to ensemble and then this sort of prescriptive performance. It was really created. We kind of built the ship together a little bit, and through these kind of directions that Juan Pablo would give us, I don't know if we necessarily achieved what was in your mind, Juan Pablo, but we dreamed and created hopefully something that was like what you were thinking for us to do. So, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about this is that everyone has their own way to develop these things. So everything will be unique, to say it in a way. So one of the most beautiful things that I learned in this choir experience, and as I said, sometimes I am in front of 16 years old Japanese girls or a very professional singers in Austria, which it's so different levels, so different approach to music, and the way everyone can, how can we say it, chew this information and just translate it into their own sound universe. It's unique. So for me, it was beautiful to experience how can two things. One, so far away, making all these things via digital things, online things, and two, how the chamber choir developed it in their own way. Because I know maybe some people will say, oh, okay, let's try it. Maybe it's not going to be so close to my technique, but I will do it. I will do it anyway. So it's challenging for everyone. And the result, what I can listen now, I was so excited to listen to the result, because finally, that's the end of the road, when you just do it, and to see everyone making these, not only one, maybe you had one hidden conductor over there. I didn't notice the button thing. Of course, I'm gonna use it maybe sometime. I don't know. Maybe it's copyrighted already, but it's nice because we are looking on the like baseball things, etc. So everyone will have their code, and now you have your own code also. You say, hey, let's make this. Of course, you have all this painting. How is it called? Painting, improvisation, painting, sound painting. Yeah. So there are a lot of things. I learned a lot about these of David Moss, one of my favorite singers. He used to sing in the Five-Man Singing with Phil Minton, which is also one of my favorite singers. So, and also I learned some things of Shelley Hirsch in New York, or Joan La Barbara, which is a very contemporary singer. So I love the way you did it. Yeah, the result is absolutely thrilling. Yeah, amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Such a weight off of our shoulders. And tomorrow we'll all see the performance. I think we could talk for another 4 or 5 hours, but I'd love to segue into any questions that the audience attendees might have for our panelists, for Maestro Arontes or Villa, or for our students, for our student ambassadors, Natéa and Diego. So please go ahead and ask away your questions, and I will try my best to moderate. We have a question from Melissa Zamora. What kind of music is this called? You might be talking about the improvised music that Juan Pablo performs.
Well, it might be like this kind of sounds might call it like experimental music or contemporary music. Of course, as I said, in 1975, 76, Demetrius Stratos was doing a great job, as well as Joan La Barbara, which she lives in New York. They were doing these things. The five men singing, they are like 70 years old, maybe. They were singing already these things, and they were called like contemporary music, right? But I can call it like that. Everyone can call it this way. But you sound so experimental, they said. So we call it experimental. Yeah, and we use it for. But I use it for. That's why because singers I'm a singer, but I didn't study in the academy, so I call myself vocal artist because I am making so many things. Well, there's a guy in the United States with a lot of you will know. It's Mike Patton. He's very famous in the rock things, but the soloist part of Mike Patton is super experimental, and he used a lot of these techniques. So they call it experimental music. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for our panelists as I'm looking to the chat? You can also feel free, I'm not sure if you have the ability to unmute yourself. Check the Q&A. I just learned that there is a Q&A. There we go. We have a question from Kimberly Joyce. What can we do as musicians to respect the traditional values and performance of this music? And Diego, can you translate that for Maestro Arontes as well?
Claro, Maestro Arontes, la pregunta que están sacando ahorita es ¿qué podemos hacer como músicos, como profesionales para respetar los valores tradicionales en nuestro performance de este tipo de música? Estos tipos de música.
I can get the ball rolling on this answer, but it's a much more involved question than I think we have time to fully explore. But on our end, we went into this project knowing that we were not owners of this music in any way, and that we also wanted to be very careful about because, as Juan Pablo said, this music is endangered as its native practitioners cease to be. So does the music, and so his work has been so much of preservation and expanding and spreading this music through his art form. We don't own this music. We're not the generators of this music, and so we wanted to be very careful that we also didn't come in as an academy to save this music, or that can sometimes be the bent of the academy, is we come in as rescuers, and that really we didn't want to have that intention either. We really wanted to come in as guests in this repertoire, as invited temporary custodians of this repertoire, working with practitioners who are as close to the native art form as you can possibly be, and learning from them and steeping ourselves in the repertoire and steeping ourselves in the history and the culture to flesh it out and to give it context, so that we weren't just playing tourists. So that's for my part, that's how we tried to approach this project. I don't know if Natéa or Diego or Juan Pablo or Maestro Arontes, if you would like to add anything.
Well, I'd say that I think it's very important, like you were saying, to contextualize the origin of this music and understand the history behind it, who created it and why. And also, at least from a personal standpoint, when I was approaching this music, I approached it from the perspective of a guest. And so I could better understand and be a little bit more observant of the customs and the different aspects that occurred within the Cardenche music. I don't know about Diego.
Yeah, I think more than just the music itself, the project in general as a whole had this question as kind of an underline throughout the whole development of it. We approach this as how do we make a collaboration with a culture that is outside of the culture of the choir in a way that is respectful and constructive for both sides. And there's a lot of challenges there. I don't think there's a right answer for this. I think there's still a lot to be learned on how to create appropriate representation in the arts. Who is allowed to sing what kind of music and why, in which moments, what context gives you the right to sing certain kind of music. But I do think that parts of the things that we did as a way of kind of constructing something that would be educational and valuable was to not only sing the music, but also try to learn from the culture, to have these sessions. That was why the collaboration with the Chicano studies classes were so important, to have to learn about the cultural context of Mexico, the different kind of indigenous musics, the traditions, where they come from, the history behind them, and to have Juan Pablo explain the current situation of the people, the Acardenchado singers, and try to understand the challenges that they're facing and the situation that this music is on. That all gives a very different reading of what the music is for us as students and what our responsibility it is at performing it, than if we were just treating it as any other piece. If it was just a kind of a Mozart piece that you sing for the sake of singing it, for the sake of filling in a recital, this had a lot more to it, I think. And I think that's something that we as musicians and anyone that approaches a different culture has to have in their practice and at the forefront of their mind to approach this kind of repertoire.
For the duration of the project, it didn't feel like we were rehearsing toward a concert. Usually you have a semester, you choose repertoire and you work toward it and you work towards the final performance. And I can honestly say that this semester did not feel that way. It didn't feel like we were working toward tomorrow. Every day felt like sort of a new exploration of the music, the culture, of working with Professor Aguilar, of working with Chicano studies, of kind of sussing out together what this music means to its practitioners, and now what does it mean to us, having explored it more thoroughly. And I thought that was a really beautiful process. Actually, it was wonderful not to work toward a goal, but to work every day, sort of to flesh something out. It's really beautiful. I unfortunately need to cut our discussion. We are going to show you all a brief behind the scenes sneak peek at the concert tomorrow, and also of some of our work this semester. And then I'm going to hand it over to Jessica Chang and Eric Smigel to send us off. So one moment here.
There's one beautiful song that says that I'm leaving to die into the deserts. I'm getting away from my town. I will follow that star, and I will think that maybe I left love behind, and that makes me cry. You can listen to a person singing about their feelings, and everywhere. That's the story of a lot of people in the world, around the world. Even if whenever you travel to another place, you're a foreigner, and if you go living there, you will have the same, a kind of same experience.
El Puente means many things to me, but the biggest thing to me has been embracing diversity. For 14 years of my life, I grew up in the bottom tip of Texas, a border town called Brownsville. I thought I knew a lot of things about my culture, but this experience has taught me new things that I never even knew. and it's been amazing to do this with my peers, to keep the Música alive.
I think part of the message about Puente that really resonates with what's going on in the world right now is just like how important it is to create, and as an artist, how important it is to create no matter what situation you're in, because creating brings beauty into the world.
The way that Juan Pablo passionately describes it is safeguarding a heritage, something that is fundamentally precious to certain people that could disappear from the world. I think that's very important. And I think that extends further out into the entirety of singing classical music. It is a great grand tradition that we are a part of, and we get to further that tradition, keep it alive for the next generation and the generation after that.
The one thing that keeps me motivated is the fact that my peers and I are working together, and every single person in this project is working together to keep the Música alive. Juan Pablo Villa has told us many times that the music is going extinct and is very endangered, and it's just amazing to know that we're keeping it alive.
The message of El Puente for me is to bridge the experience of our students studying in this country, students studying in Mexico, through these musics that we're practicing right now, and to express Latinidad for our students, to express what it means to be Chicana Chicano in Southern California, and to also provide a space for students from both countries to come together in this shared experience.
So the message of El Puente is about erasing the borders between the people of Mexico and America. To me personally, it's about sharing our cultures and embracing diversity and just bringing people together.
This project is really important because the location of San Diego State University is one that it can serve as a bridge. We live in a border town, and it's really important to understand that we don't live within a vacuum. We're heavily influenced by the culture of Mexico, and there's a lot of people here, and I think that it's important to realize that there is a divide and try to bridge that and try to learn and understand and become more empathetic.
What I would like to, I don't know, to people to get from this experience through these concerts, through these songs, is actually the beautifulness, if I'm allowed to say that, of the Mexican songs, of the polyphonic arrangements that were made by peasants and now they are developed by choirs. It's a little bit of life history, the songs.
Thank you, Juan Pablo Villa. Thank you, David Arontes. Thank you, Natéa. Thank you, Diego, so much for being with us. Thank you to Arts Alive, to the Discovery Series for hosting us. And I'd like to turn it over now to Jessica Cheng. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. I wish I could applaud. Well, I am applauding. Everybody applaud and share some love in the chat for all of our panelists. Let's thank Arian, David, Juan Pablo, Natéa, and Diego for our simulating session. And as a reminder, the performance of El Puente de la Canción will be streamed for free on the School of Music and Dance YouTube channel beginning at noon tomorrow, Friday, May 7th, and it'll be available for viewing indefinitely. So the link to access the page will be posted in the chat box, as well as our One SDSU survey, which I have just entered into the chat box as well. We would be grateful for your responses as it'll help us improve our programming. And we hope you can attend other events sponsored by One SDSU and Arts Alive SDSU, and I'll post our website in the chat as well. I just want to say thank you so much. I've learned so much. I definitely am someone who did not know a lot about this art form coming in, and you all broke it down in such a way that was truly intentional. And I felt like, at least as it relates to my work as a diversity officer at SDSU, I felt like there was parallels too in regards to how to approach working in intercommunity values and understanding and learning how to respect different cultures when learning about them in such a way that was very detailed. And I appreciate all of your time for that and how you've shared that with me. So I wanted to just share that with you. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Have a good evening. And I wanted to see if any of the panelists wanted to say any last words to each other, because I feel the love through Zoom and through all of your energy.
I would just like to thank Professor Arontes. I know working in the university as well, I know how challenging it's been this year with Zoom rehearsals and with virtual choirs. Thank you so much for being a part of this project. I can't wait for the concert tomorrow.
Maestro, el profesor Khaefi le agradece por todo el trabajo. Dice que sabe lo difícil que ha sido trabajar en un contexto universitario todo este año y que de verdad no tiene las suficientes palabras para agradecerle todo su trabajo, y que está muy emocionado por el concierto de mañana.
Les agradezco a todos su invitación y de veras sí ha sido un arduo trabajo, ha sido muy difícil, pero los frutos siempre nos recompensan y nos hacen ser felices. Mil gracias.
Says that he is very, very grateful for the invitation, and that even though it has been a very, very difficult time and a very, very difficult job, the fruit of this work is it's worth it. So.
Juan Pablo, you have, and Maestro Arontes, you have friends at SDSU for the rest of your lives. Juan Pablo, I feel, even though we've never met in person, that there's a lifetime of music to explore together, and I hope that we get to see each other in Mexico City someday soon. And the same with Professor Arontes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It has been a beautiful experience. It was so nice to meet Maestro David Arontes. Muchísimo gusto, David. Esperemos encontrarnos en muchas circunstancias en esta vida. Y Diego, muchísimas gracias por la conexión. Thank you very much, Diego, for the connection. And it was so nice meeting you, Arian. I know we will have a lot of opportunities in life to meet and to, of course, invite the chamber choir to Mexico City. I'm sure we can produce some spectacular things around here. I'm just dreaming about it. And thank you all for listening. Thank you to all your beautiful team. It's so wonderful to work with this beautiful team. Jessica, Natéa, Eric, thank you very much.
Profesores, mis compañeros, gracias a todos.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias a todos. Thank you, Dr. Khaefi. Thank you, Juan Pablo. Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone, Arts Alive, everyone that has been involved in this project. This was a dream that we had a year ago, and I'm just so happy that it could work the way that it did. So thank you, everyone, for your work, for your effort, for your openness. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, y'all. And yes, if Eric say anything too, or I think you have access to end the webinar.
We're going to reconnect face-to-face at some point. We will celebrate this new dream that has been emerging together at some point. Thank you, everyone, for making this a magical space. We look forward to the performance tomorrow.
Thank you.